Rain fell in heavy sheets that night, drumming against the rooftops and windows like 1,000 tiny fists demanding entry. Inside his modest apartment, Mark sat on the edge of his worn sofa, staring blankly at the muted glow of the television. The world outside seemed distant, cold, and unforgiving. The small apartment smelled faintly of yesterday's dinner and old laundry, and the silence hung over him like a weight pressing him down. Being a single father had changed everything in his life: the easy laughter, the spontaneous adventures, the carefree nights, all replaced with sleepless hours, endless responsibilities, and the persistent ache of loneliness. His little daughter, Emma, had been asleep for hours, wrapped up in her tiny blanket, oblivious to the storm outside or the quiet desperation in her father's eyes. Mark rubbed his temples, feeling the familiar burn of exhaustion. Bills were piling up, work had been unrelenting, and sleep had become a luxury he could no longer afford. He felt like he was living in a perpetual loop of survival, one day blending into the next, each as gray and unremarkable as the last. He missed the days when life felt simpler, when he could be spontaneous, when he could breathe without the constant tension in his chest. And yet, despite it all, he kept going for Emma. She was the reason he woke up every morning, the reason he pushed through the fatigue, the reason he still believed in some form of hope. A knock at the door startled him, echoing in the quiet apartment. Mark hesitated, his instincts torn between caution and compassion. No one visited him this late, and yet something about the knock felt urgent. He walked slowly, cautiously, his feet making soft thuds against the hardwood floor. Peering through the peephole, he saw a young woman, soaked by the rain, her face partially obscured by a hood and strands of wet hair clinging to her cheeks. There was something about her presence that radiated vulnerability, a silent plea in her eyes that tugged at the edges of his heart. He hesitated, glancing back at the sleeping Emma. A wave of fear hit him. What if it was dangerous? What if he made a mistake? And yet, something inside him whispered that he couldn't just turn her away. Mark opened the door, and she stepped inside, shivering, her hands clutched tightly together as if trying to shield herself from the storm outside. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. Mark simply nodded, grabbing a towel and handing it to her. As she dried herself, he noticed the raw exhaustion etched into her features, the deep shadows under her eyes, and the small cuts on her arms that spoke of recent struggles. His heart ached with empathy, yet a part of him remained cautious. At that moment, he made a decision that would alter both their lives forever. He offered her a warm cup of tea, a blanket, and a place to rest for the night. He didn't ask questions, he simply provided shelter. The storm outside raged on, and within the walls of his small apartment, an unspoken bond began to form. Viewer engagement prompt: if you believe in kindness and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because sometimes a single act of compassion can change a life forever. Mark spent the night in a restless haze, glancing occasionally at the young woman as she slept on the couch. He didn't know her name, her story, or the troubles she carried, but he felt a strange connection to her pain. He remembered the countless nights he had felt alone and scared, wishing for someone to care, someone to see him beyond the struggles and the exhaustion. And now, in a twist of fate, he had the opportunity to be that someone for another soul. Morning came slowly, the storm easing into a gentle drizzle. Mark awoke to find her still asleep, her breathing steady, but her expression marked by lingering worry. He hesitated before waking her, unsure how to navigate the boundaries of kindness and intrusion. When she finally opened her eyes, she looked at him with a mixture of gratitude and hesitation, as if expecting judgment but finding none. Over breakfast, She finally shared fragments of her story. She had been running from a life that had become unbearable: abusive relationships, financial struggles, and a sense of hopelessness that had left her stranded on the edge of despair. Mark listened without interruption, the weight of her words sinking deep into his chest. He didn't offer platitudes or quick fixes. Instead, he offered understanding, a safe space, and the assurance that she wasn't alone. Days turned into weeks, and what had begun as a single night of shelter slowly became a lifeline. Mark found himself learning her habits, her fears, and the small quirks that made her human. He discovered the strength beneath her fragility, the courage she didn't yet see in herself. In turn, she became a quiet presence of hope in his life, reminding him that even in the darkest hours, connection could blossom in the most unexpected ways. Mark faced challenges that tested his limits. Financial strains worsened, and balancing work, parenting, and the responsibility of protecting someone else became overwhelming. Yet each obstacle brought with it a lesson in resilience, empathy, and the power of human connection. He learned that strength was not measured by what he could endure alone, but by the love and compassion he could share, even in small, imperfect ways. The young woman, whose name was Lily, slowly began to rebuild her life. With Mark's guidance and support, she found a small job, reconnected with estranged family members, and started therapy to heal the scars left by her past. Mark watched her transformation with a mixture of pride and awe, realizing that his act of opening the door had not only saved her, it had saved him as well. He had opened his heart to someone else, and in doing so, he discovered the depth of his own humanity. One evening, as they sat on the small balcony, overlooking the city lights, Emma ran up to them with a drawing she had made. It was a picture of the three of them, holding hands under a bright sun, smiling faces surrounded by colors that seemed to radiate warmth. Mark felt a lump in his throat, realizing that this little moment of joy was the culmination of countless nights of struggle, fear, and sacrifice. He turned to Lily, seeing the gratitude and affection in her eyes. In that moment, he understood that family was not always defined by blood or circumstance. It was built through trust, kindness, and the willingness to open your heart, even when it felt risky. And yet, the story was not without suspense. One night, Mark received a phone call that shook him to his core. Lily's past had caught up with her. Someone she had feared was searching for her. Fear gripped his chest, and for the first time he realized the true extent of the risk he had taken by letting her into his home. But instead of panicking, Mark felt a surge of determination. He would protect her, no matter what. Through careful planning and courage he didn't know he possessed, Mark helped Lily navigate the threat. They contacted authorities, created a safe plan, and faced the danger together. The experience bonded them even more, reinforcing the idea that trust and courage could overcome fear. Mark realized that protecting someone else was not just an act of bravery, it was a declaration of love, empathy, and unwavering commitment. Weeks later, the danger had passed, and life slowly returned to a sense of normalcy. The storm that had once raged outside Mark's door now existed only as a memory, replaced by laughter, shared meals, and quiet evenings of contentment. Mark and Lily's bond had deepened, not through grand gestures, but through the steady, patient acts of care, understanding, and support. Mark often reflected on that rainy night, the night he had almost ignored a knock at his door. It had changed everything, not just for Lily, but for himself. He discovered that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. He had learned that kindness could ripple in ways beyond imagination, touching hearts, transforming lives, and creating connections that endured even the harshest storms. Emma thrived in this environment of love and care. She learned firsthand the power of compassion, the importance of helping those in need, and the beauty of forming bonds that transcended circumstance. Mark watched her grow with pride, understanding that the lessons they shared as a family would shape her into a person capable of empathy, strength, and resilience. As the months passed, Mark and Lily found a rhythm of life that was grounded in gratitude, mutual respect, and a quiet joy that comes from knowing that, against all odds, they had found each other. Their journey was not perfect, but it was a testament to the transformative power of opening your heart to someone in need. Mark never forgot the fear that had gripped him that first night, nor the hesitation before opening the door. But he also never forgot the warmth, the connection, and the gratitude that followed. That single act of courage had created ripples far beyond what he could have imagined, and in the end, he realized that protecting someone else, even when you didn't know who they were, could lead to a salvation greater than any one person could achieve alone. Life had given Mark a second chance, not just as a father, but as a man capable of immense compassion, courage, and love. And in that quiet apartment, once filled with silence and despair, laughter, hope, and light now flourished. Viewer engagement prompt: if this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share this video. Let others know that acts of kindness and courage can truly change lives. And don't forget to comment below "I'd love to hear how this story inspired you." Mark knew that life would continue to present challenges, that storms would come and go, and that fear would always lurk in some corners. But he also knew that the simple act of opening a door, both literally and metaphorically, could make all the difference. That night, when he had offered shelter to a stranger, he hadn't just protected a life. He had nurtured hope, forged a family, and discovered the remarkable power of human kindness. And in the quiet moments that followed, as rain gently tapped against the windows once more, Mark finally allowed himself to feel the peace that comes from knowing he had done the right thing. His heart, once heavy with loneliness, now overflowed with love. His home, once a place of mere survival, had become a sanctuary of second chances, connection, and enduring courage. The lonely single dad had opened his door for one night, not knowing who he was protecting. But in the end, he had protected something far greater: the possibility of hope, healing, and a future filled with love.